This is the second part of Lecture 02. Our goal here is to get started with RStudio Cloud. Now to do that, I would start by going to the course website. Sorry, this is my lab website, rather. It's available by searching in Google or from Moodle or let's say from asking a friend, lots of alternatives. And you'll find that there is a menu item called Courses, and then you'll see the link to this course, Bioinformatics, Data Science, and Biology. If you click on it, you'll be taken to the course. Now, note, this is a temporary web address I used while developing the course. By the time you see this video, it will be corrected with the permanent web address. Okay, but here at the course website, um, we the first thing that you need to do is send us your Gmail account. Okay, I'll say right here as a small caveat, there's an RStudio Cloud link here. It does in fact take you to RStudio, but it doesn't take you to our workspace precisely. Um, I don't want to post that here for security reasons. Okay, so the way it's going to work is that you're going to send us an email with your Gmail account, and then we're going to send you an invitation to join our Slack room. Okay, all right. So now, as all of you have done by now, for sure, because it was part of the first lecture, you've read through the overview of the course. And at the very bottom in the action items, there was a request that you send us a email to biology480.concordia. And that email should look something like this. Now, throughout the course, I'm going to use this person, I am Deadpool. Okay, and all I really want is a short email sent to this address, Biology480 Concordia, saying, Dear Mike, or could you please send me the link to the Slack workspace for Biology 480, 510, or 630? So just let me know if you're a graduate student, undergrad, or genomics diploma student. If you're at Concordia and you just want to audit the course, I'm okay with that. Just let me know, okay? And if you're not at Concordia and you'd like to follow the course, just let me know that, and I'll get whatever I can for you. Um, I think the only rules there basically is that you can't be using TA time per se. I'll help you as much as I can, but the teaching assistant should be focused only on the students. However, in Slack, I'd be happy if the other students were to help you guys all out, and vice versa. So it'd be great to have some kind of synergy there. And send me or send us your Gmail address. So again, we want a Gmail address for two reasons. One, it really helps us keep everything organized, and secondly, uh, there are some security issues with some of the software that are better handled by Gmail. Okay, so you send us that email, and we're going to send you back an invitation to Slack. And when you get that invitation, you're going to get a link to this Slack space here. So as I mentioned in the very first video, Slack is broken into workspaces. Our workspace is called Concordia Bioinformatics 2020. Okay. And then within Slack, there are different channels. And the main channel that you'll see right away when you sign in is this one here called Data Science Fall 2020. And that's the primary channel. Now, as I talked about before in lecture 0, um, you guys can create channels dynamically, either private or public, and share information. I've also created an auditor's data science for people auditing the course, whether they're at Concordia or not, so that you can all still interact. Okay. Now, when you come into Slack, you follow the link to this that we send to you. You're going to see in here a link to the RStudio space. I can tell you this is a fake link for security reasons. It's going to look slightly different when you log in. You're also going to see pinned to the channel the Zoom channel that we use for lectures. That's the number, but the password is hidden for now. And thirdly, you're going to see our RStudio workspace is, and you're going to see a tiny link over here. It's this link here that you follow to get to RStudio Cloud, and you'll be in the right um, space at RStudio Cloud to start with. Okay. A slight note, or a small note about Slack. I've pinned these items, which means that if you go to information, you click on the eye and you go under pinned, you'll see these messages are always available at the right hand side, no matter how complicated and full this channel gets. Okay. So now recall, you send us your Gmail account, okay, with the information we've requested. You'll get an invitation to this Slack channel. You come on here into this channel called Data Science Fall 2020. You click on this link here, and that's going to take you to RStudio Workspace and our specific workspace within that software. Okay, so what is that going to look like? Okay, good question. So here, you're going to get taken to a page that looks like this. In this case here, this is the email for I'm Deadpool, and you're going to enter. Now, you could log in with your Google because you have a Gmail account, so that would be perfectly valid, and you could do that, and it would save you another password, of course. Okay, so if I log in here, and now I'm logging in as a student, okay, and this is I am Deadpool is a student, you're going to see something that looks an awful lot like this. And this is RStudio Cloud. It's an amazing piece of software. It's brand new. Um, it just was released publicly in the summertime. I think that they really, motored on it because of the COVID-19 situation and the need for really good online teaching tools. I won't tell you about back in the day how hard it was in the first couple lectures of this course to get all the software downloaded and installed on all of your different operating systems and computing infrastructure. That's all basically solved now with RStudio Cloud. It's beautiful. Okay, so you'll see up here that there's three main things. You'll see your workspace, okay? And if you click on that, you'll get this menu over here on the left-hand side. Um, you'll also see a button for projects and a button for info. Info gives you a little bit of background, I think, or information, and you could check that out for sure. But the main thing here is projects and your workspace. And you should see over here Data Science for Biology 2020, in addition to one that's called Your Workspace and a button that allows you to make even more workspaces. Okay, so workspaces are sort of like uh, car like I guess sandboxes or a container, so you can put a lot of information that's related to each other into one of these containers, into this workspace to keep everything organized. You should probably use your workspace as an area for you to play with R and RStudio. Um, maybe while you're doing assignments or when you're investigating your own data, etc. If you were to say stick with RStudio after this course and let's say work on your thesis work or you have data with a company, you might create a new space to keep that information separate from the course information that's available here in Data Science for Biology. So that's where we're going to hang out. Now, basically how this works is that I control that workspace and I make available projects. So here, for example, you'll see under this listing all projects, this is all of them. So it's shared with everyone or just your projects. You can change this, but you see this one right now because it's on all projects. This is one project and it corresponds to today's lecture called Lecture 02. Each lecture essentially will have a new project associated with it, okay? Now I'll just go back here for a second to your list. If you go to your workspace, you don't have any projects right now. You could create a project by simply clicking on this button, and it's going to take you into um, a very different looking space where you can actually interact with R. Okay, I think I'm gonna break that right now. It's created that there, but uh, nothing's in it. We're interested here in Data Science for Biology 2020. So, and we're going to look at this first project called L02 today. But before going into that, um, I'll say here, You can look at all the members, and this is going to give you everybody in the class. Right now, I'm just in it, and the student I am Deadpool because they're super keener who started in the summer. Um, Info doesn't really have anything of interest for you at this point. Of course, you can tailor your profile appropriately. Okay, so I have some information in here about Deadpool right now, but you could add your information there, and there's some things about your accounts, etc., and that's less important at this point. Okay, and so let's go back here. Um, I want to get back to data science and biology. Okay, so before again going into this project, you could also create your own projects in data science for biology. Okay, and they would be private to you actually. If you create a project in this workspace, even though I sort of own this data science for biology workspace, you can certainly modify it. Other students won't see it, nor will I. Okay, but it's so for example, if you want to play around, work on an assignment, etc., go right ahead and create a new project. It's not like it's going to be broadcast to everybody else in the class. You'll get the hang of this. Okay, and the other thing maybe I should say before moving on is that this is actually a very informative column. This are your spaces here. Info is just basically that. It's not that interesting, but maybe for troubleshooting. Learn is really, really good, and I highly recommend you exploring here. There's some great stuff in this, right? The primers especially, and later on the cheat sheets are extremely good. The primers are a bunch of videos, and in fact, this breakdown of basics, work with data, visualize, etc., tidy your data, they're following the course textbook. Okay, they're built in a package called Learn R that we're going to use often for quizzes and interacting in the class. So I highly recommend these little tutorials. They're excellent, and they give you a hands-on direct experience with R. Okay, so just to orient, like that's a bit, you can open and close that menu, right? I hope everybody sees that, um, understands that. So yeah, okay, so cheat sheets and primers, feedback and questions. That's actually really important too. You can ask questions to RStudio community, and they're a really nice community. Actually, RStudio is a really fantastic company. They're very progressive, very fast, very modern. Um, they really stand for a lot of nice um, ideas. Some of my favorite people are in that company. Jenny Bryant, who's a professor at UBC in statistics, was really influential in RStudio, and she's there now. I think she's permanently now at RStudio, and a number of other people, really famous people like Hadley Wickham, who is one of the co-authors of the book, and others I'm sure you'll learn. You can also check out the guide for some of the things about RStudio Cloud, in particular about what's a workspace and what's a project, etc. Shared workspaces, on and on. And you'll get the idea of this as you go along. Okay, spaces are the main organizational structure in RStudio Cloud. But within spaces, you have this concept of projects. Okay, so again, essentially we'll have one project for each lecture, and for uh, we might have some projects that are what are called assignments. So some projects can be made into assignments. So spaces are the main organizational unit in RStudio Cloud, and we have this shared space called data science for biology. Now, inside of a space, there's the concept of projects. So they're a sub-organization. And as I said a little bit earlier, we're going to have basically one project for every lecture in the class. And we might have some other projects that correspond to assignments. And you'll see those later on. We won't worry about that now. So if we go into this project, well, you're going to get a little bit of a delay. It's deploying the project. Now, that's because everything that we're doing here is running on the RStudio server somewhere elsewhere in the world, right? It's anywhere in the world. We don't really care. None of this is running on your machine right now. This is all just a web interface. Okay, so this is what it looks like after it's been deployed. And you're now in RStudio. Okay, so even before proceeding, we should talk about this. You see up here, it's got this flashing red thing that says temporary project. What this means is that you've opened the project that I made publicly available called L2 Getting Started, but you actually are looking at it, but you actually haven't saved it to your space yet. You should make a permanent copy right away. And when you make a permanent copy by clicking on that button, not surprisingly, that warning goes away. And now you're in a pure RStudio environment. Okay. Now we have the name of the space, the name of the project here, and then we have some information about you and access, right? We can worry about that later. And then this is a little bit about if you wanted to delete the project later on or share it, etc. Okay, and we can shut that now. I'm not actually sure how to shut it, but yeah, there we go. Okay, and that's just about you again. What you'll see here is initially um, uh, 3 or 4 windows. That's the classic RStudio layout. In here, this window down here in the bottom left is actually R. So recall from the first lecture that I use this analogy that R is the engine and RStudio is the body of the car. Okay, so this is actually a separate entity, and RStudio houses R. It makes it easier to use. You could perfectly well just open up R right from the command line and run R. Maybe I can even show you that. If I go into my computer, I should have R. Yeah, there it is right there. I can open R, and there is the R console, and I could perfectly well program directly into the R language and ask it questions like 5 plus 5, and it'll compute 10. Okay, the thing is that that's not very convenient, so people don't generally program anymore directly in R. They use what's called an interactive development environment. That's what RStudio is. Now, RStudio Cloud is RStudio that's cloud-based, which we talked about earlier today. So all of the computation takes place at RStudio on their servers and not on your machine nor on my machine. Okay, you can download RStudio and run it locally. In fact, if I click on this icon here, for whatever it's worth, you see that I'm running RStudio on my machine. Now I use that for research purposes. In fact, this whole environment right now is the website and the syllabus and lectures for this course. I run RStudio locally on my laptop, and I run another version of RStudio on my server, which we talked about earlier today. Big computational and storage facilities, um, they also have RStudio so that I can run our programs there. But RStudio Cloud is really convenient because the environment is all set up for us, and I can, in the background, tailor the environment for your ease of use. Okay. Okay, so these 4 windows. This is the R window, as we said. That's check. We're finished with that. Over here, you're going to see in the bottom right that it's a multi-tiered window. First is files. And so what you see here is that on the cloud, this is the root, and you have a project here. And in this project, there's a number of files. And I basically provided all of those files when I created the project. And they serve different purposes. Here, this SRC, that's Computer Geek language for source code, and these are basically R programs. You can ignore those for now. I put those in there so that to make sure that certain packages and data are available to you guys as we move along, so you don't have to do it yourself, because I'm a really, really nice guy. In other cases, you'll see it might be images, and if I click on it, that image will actually load, so I can, and it's just a picture of my favorite student. I am Deadpool. And in other cases, I'll make code available to you. For example, file called examples.r in a folder called examples. And if I click on this, you'll see that that file, it's a text file, appears over here in the top left. And actually, this file contains R code. Um, this is kind of like prepping area for running R. Okay, so for example, it's perfectly valid for me to go right into the R session and do 5 plus 5 and get an answer, or I could do 5 minus 6 and get an answer, or I could do 5 times 6 and get an answer. So I could type right there, but for large programs, it's not convenient to type and my program directly into R because I want to save that program and rerun it. So if later on I want to run 5 plus 5 again, I have to go and basically type it all back in. For example, if I shut down the session, it would no longer be there when I started it back up. What I want is to store my programs in a safe place so that I can re um, use that code when I'd like to. And how do I do that? Well, basically, if I go to File, I can do New File, that's this thing right here, and I get a dizzying array of possibilities. In this case here, examples.r, it's an R script, okay? And I can create a new R script like this, and I can say this is my new program, and I could try to do some large calculation, okay, and I could save it, and it's going to ask me to save it, and I might save it into my example folder and call it examples2.r, and when I save it, it shows up down here in my thing. So if I close this file, I can reopen it, and there it is. But this is kind of a useless file, so I'm just gonna delete it for now, okay, and not keep it around. Okay, so I can open up these R files, and later on there are different kinds. There's R notebooks and R Markdown. We are going to use R Markdown later in the course, and we're going to use Shiny. Okay, you'll notice that if you're already a Python fan, some of you I'm sure are, you can also use RStudio to nicely these days to handle Python or C++, etc. It's a pretty versatile tool actually. But for now, we're going to focus on R scripts. Okay, all right. So that takes care of this window. So again, this is the R window. This, we started with files. It has other purposes, and we'll see those purposes in a little bit. And then we have this window up here. What's nice, for example, if you go to history, is that it keeps track of everything that you've executed in R. So if I want to go back and redo something, I can just basically point to that, hit return, and you see that it's all queued up to be executed again, right? It's kind of nice to, if you want to, travel around back, figure out what you've done, and redo it again. Connections you can ignore, and tutorial for now you can ignore. We're going to get to environment in a little bit. Okay, so this untitled I don't need, examples.r. Okay, so 4 windows. All right, 4 windows. Now, before continuing, I don't find these 4 windows to be, the default for RStudio. I don't find them to be the most convenient. So I sometimes I change them a little bit. So if you go into, for example, tools down to global options, I can change things around, and you can change it to whatever way you want. Each person has their own uh, preferences. I prefer a dark screen with coloring, and you'll understand what that coloring means later on, but it helps you to program. And when I click that, you can see that I go into night mode, right? That's a little bit more, I think, looks a bit more Deadpool to me. Okay, and the other thing is I don't like the organization, the pane layout. I prefer, this is my source, right? In my top left, that's the source code. That's why it's called source. I prefer to have my console where I run the R program up top here, and then my the rest of the information down here. And when I do that, I just made a small change. Now my R window's up here, and my environment's down here, and my files remained where they were before. So hopefully that you get the idea. I think you should just experiment a little bit and see what you like to do. So I think we can leave it there for our introduction to RStudio Cloud. I will post another video for the lab this week that goes through the examples in this file called examples.r. That covers the some of the core fundamental concepts in programming, the first steps. Um, Next class, we're going to look at visualization in the context of breast cancer transcriptomes. Um, and that's going to involve a lot of graphics. So I hope you enjoy your exploration of RStudio and R. Um, it can be frustrating. So, reach out for help to us and to your colleagues. And there's lots of resources online. Slack is always there for us. And, you know, try to be patient and experiment and play. Good luck, and I'll see you next week.